This week I'll be speaking with Hoagman, aka Hoagie, from the Austin-based band Full Service. Now, Full Service is a band that my band, Badfish, has played many shows with over the years, and we've known them for quite a while. I will say that among all the bands that we play with, I have to say they're probably my favorite band. I mean, this band is unique. They don't quite fit a mold, really. You could kind of characterize them as somewhat reggae, but also there's a lot of metal influences. There's Beach Boys influences. There's Guns N' Roses and Mastodon influences going on in here. I mean, this is a unique band, and these guys are great guys. I'm very excited to be talking with Hoagman, and also for a brief time, we'll be talking with Bonesaw, who happens to be Hoagman's brother. Bonesaw is the guitar player, also a songwriter, and also does some vocals in the band. Now, they have a new band called Two Player that they are focusing on primarily now. It's basically a duo where they focus a little bit more on the progressive rock influences that they have as musicians. But there's an unmistakable thread that runs through all of their material, all the way through Full Service into the Two Player project, which really comes down to the incredible sense of melody and harmony that you get from Hoagman, and the incredible just riffing and guitar lick mastery of Bonesaw. I'm really excited to speak about so many things that we have experienced throughout our past, and we have a lot of funny stories to talk about. And I'm excited to speak about Full Service's past as a band and some of the cool things that they've accomplished. Notably among them is this concept of the Takeover Tour that they basically formulated themselves, as far as I can tell, where the band would follow a tour, and most notably they followed the 311 and Snoop Dogg tour, and would set up in parking lots and play for fans, tailgating fans going to the show to see 311 and Snoop Dogg. They would set up on a stage, they would have a generator, and they would play their own show. And that was their sort of guerrilla tactic of getting fans and getting themselves exposed, which ended up actually bearing some fruit in the way that 311 took note of this and invited them to play some opening slots on some of their subsequent tours, and also brought them on the 311 cruise several times, one of which I was very honored to be a part of myself, which was so much fun. These guys work hard. They have a great work ethic. They have great music. They are great guys. I am very stoked to be talking with Hoagman and Bonesaw briefly here, and his baby. So without further ado, let's do it. Hoagie, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here in the car with you.
That's right. This is the first CarCast, which you just coined that term, I think. Did that really happen just now?
I think so.
Before we started rolling, of course?
I think so.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a play on carpool karaoke. But truth be told, we should tell the listeners that I'm not actually in the car with you. I'm thousands of miles away in Texas, and you're in Rhode Island.
That is right. Right. We're not breaking any rules or anything like that. We're not sitting close together in a car. But I am in a car, and that's just what I'm trying to do today, to find new ways that I can make this happen in a quiet space. And so far, so good, man.
Cool.
So, how's everything going? How are you feeling? How's your new family and all that? How's it all going? How's everyone doing?
Everyone's doing great. I just before the pandemic, I proposed to my then girlfriend, now fiance, which I still get a kick out of calling her my fiance. I can't wait to start calling her my wife and to be called somebody's husband. But so like two weeks before the pandemic really got us all inside and all the stay-at-home orders happened, it was great joy times, you know?
Joy times, yeah. Happy times,
joy times. And then that happened. But so bringing everybody inside wasn't like a big deal to me, because that's who I wanted to be around anyway.
Mhm.
You know, at that time, and she had family in town. It was a little bit crazy actually when it all went down in terms of the quarantine stuff, because her mom and dad were visiting. They just came to sort of celebrate the engagement, and then everything went in lockdown. And it's like that was back when, you know, like mid-March, when everyone was like, what are the rules? What are we doing?
Right.
So we went through that with them. You know, I remember the Saturday of like March 14th or 15th, we went out to lunch, you know? And then 2 days later, it's like, that was unthinkable. So it happened pretty fast. You know, that's an old story.
Right.
Happened fast everywhere around the country. But
Now,
otherwise,
her parents were in from, had they flown in?
they actually, they kind of go around the country for months at a time. And this dude, they have a tour bus basically.
Wow.
Yeah, and they just go to national parks and stuff and visit their children and grandkids. So we were just one of their stops.
I see.
Yeah, but other than that, things are good. My brother Bonesaw, who you also know through our time together touring between our two bands, he just had a baby with his wife Colleen. So there are these big life changes that had just happened, and then this pandemic hit us. So it's been a weird time, to say the least. What about you?
Well, you know, yeah, weird time, and in a similar way, yeah, things sort of in a matter of days went from I'm stopping. I went with my dad for lunch. I don't know. This was our last tour date was on March 1st in San Diego, and it was really a week after that where things started to really ramp up. And I think it was later that week I met my dad in Providence. We went out to lunch, and yeah, within a matter of days, it was that was just not something you do. So I the same experience, but I have my family here, our two kids, my wife and I, and our dog, and there's some adjustment, and I think that we're kind of there now. I think it has taken a few weeks to adjust to our 14-year-old doing the distance learning via Zoom or video chat or whatever it is that they're using. I think she's adjusted better than any of us. Like it's like a breeze for her. Our 5-year-old who is in preschool, that's a little bit more challenging. There's no sort of curriculum for him to follow, so we're just kind of making sure he looks at a book with numbers and letters in it now and again, and doesn't get buried in just mindless YouTube bullshit or video games. But inevitably, for us to get anything done, like there has to be those moments where, okay, I think that we early on we sort of set some guidelines and some parameters for ourselves as much as the children to sort of stick to, and to kind of like keep ourselves from going off, veering off into who knows where. And I think we've really done a good job of sticking to it. And the kids are taking it like champs. They're fine. The usual bullshit of it just sucking to not be able to go to like a park where there's other kids playing, but we're doing our best to get outside when the weather is nice enough to do so. So we're maintaining, and we are in a better place now than we were 3 weeks ago. I can say that for sure.
Good. That's funny about the numbers and letters, making sure, hey, Julian, look at this thing with numbers and letters in it. It's like, right. It's a pretty good rule of thumb. If you distill it down to what they need to be seeing, maybe little kids and kids in school don't need the full on school experience at home, but they generally just need numbers and letters.
Just numbers and letters. That's
not just screens. But it's also what you said about the simple wish of just going to a park. And these kids, it's one of the hardest things to deal with on our end. Like my fiance Megan has a daughter, Evangeline. She's 11, and one of the hardest things has been getting it all clear. Like, what are the rules with her, if any, interactions with kids in the neighborhood? Mm-hmm. And there's a bit of a balance between, Because otherwise she's an only child and she's just in there with us. And so we've had to really tell her, like, look, when we're out, because she likes to go rollerblading in the neighborhood, and most of the time we go with her. But, we have to explain the rules. Like, you got to keep this amount of distance. You got to be washing your hands when you go in and out. And you can't touch them. And it's been difficult. They are allowed, maybe I'll be crucified for this, but they are allowed to, like, be around each other just in the same way that, you see things like adults doing, like, socially distanced hangout, bike ride or whatever, you know? So,
right.
And that's hard. That's a tough thing for kids to understand, I think, or really get that, like, this is a big deal. And no one's just, not just parents being like, you can't do something.
Right. It's right. And she's 11, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's of the age where you can kind of explain to her.
Yeah.
Well enough. But it still sucks. It's still a complete interruption of everything that they know. And I think that's really the toughest part is I just feel bad that, Julian, all of his buddies in preschool, he really misses them. In fact, they did a Zoom call today with some of his classmates, and it was probably the cutest thing I've ever seen. All these kids just yammering on all at the same time and showing each other their toys and stuff. I mean, it was really cool. But he says it a lot. I miss school. He wasn't really ever saying that when he was going to school,
That's been a surprise to me too, that I hear kids saying that. And, like, I started this, I made one for you, and I wish I had done so out of the goodness of my own heart, but it was partly that and partly beta testing. But I made this new little side gig where I make these personalized puppet videos you can order one for people or for kids or whatever. But so people have been ordering them for their kids, and every one of them says they really miss school. If you could bring up the fact that, hang in there, and that they miss school and whatnot. And someone wrote a script for me, actually, and said, it was my sister-in-law who teaches preschool, but in her script, she wrote that, like, and actually I was doing the lion, the character that's based on your personality and voice. But, yeah, so he kind of talks like this. It's like a big exaggeration, but, like, he kind of does his thing, But, so, and her script said, like, I hear you staying home, and that's really, you're basically superheroes because you're doing everyone a favor, You're staying home so other people don't get sick. And
that sounds just like me.
Impressions never quite do, but,
You formerly, for many years, played drums and sang lead vocals in Full Service.
In Full Service, yes.
Yeah. Did you hear that sort of pause for effect there before I said Full Service? Because I hold you guys in the highest regard as a band, and all you as musicians and friends and all that stuff. But so yeah, and that's how we met. My band Badfish played who knows how many shows with Full Service through the years. And can you maybe to maybe refresh my memory, and for those that don't know, how we came into each other's worlds?
Absolutely. And that's a good pause point, because Bonesaw did just come in here, and this would be a great time. He says he has a little bit. This would be a great part of the conversation for him to be involved in. Don't you think?
I think so. Can you hear me, Bonesaw?
I can't. I got to put some headphones.
We're going to get him set up. It'll take me just a couple minutes, but you guys can catch up while I set it up. So I'm going to transfer this mic and the headphones to him.
Okay, great.
Hold on. Scotty, I'm holding a baby, so I'm moving slow.
That's fine, and that's incredible and wonderful news, and congratulations. I don't think I extended that congratulations, so congratulations. And obviously this is a kind of a weird time, but I just mean in life in general, but especially for you, but also probably an amazing time. Am I right?
Hell yeah, dude! It's just good to hear your voice, Scotty.
It's good to hear your voice too, brother.
Man, you might be able to hear her making little noises right here. Her name's Ramona.
Ramona?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Works out. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, she just got handed off to me, and so she's on my shoulder. She just ate. Colleen's going out, actually, to do like a distance
birthday celebration with some of her friends for one of her friends' birthdays. So they're all sitting 10 feet apart or whatever.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I've heard of some of that going on. Birthdays, like caravans of cars going down the street, passing by houses, and people are getting pretty creative about ways to celebrate events like that without being right in each other's faces, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I may not have a ton of time to talk depending on her behavior here, but she's a mellow baby, so hopefully we'll get a little time.
It's just good to hear your voice, man. I'm glad you're able to pop in even for a few.
Yeah, dude. I'm ready for you to bring back more of the rock card Instagram posts.
I know. I started that, and then I went a couple of days without doing it, and they got put somewhere else away from I couldn't see them, or they got put in a drawer maybe, and then I'm like, man, I kind of need to do more of that. Yeah, you had some requests, didn't you? For those
I'm looking for that
cards.
Marty Friedman card. You know it.
I might have to open a few more packs because I haven't seen a Marty Friedman card, and man, that's kind of a drag.
I know. I have some of those packs too, but I can't find. I was looking for mine too, but I couldn't find them.
It's surprising because I've in posting it, I've people that I kind of half know or knew in college or something are like, oh, I have those, and we're like virtually trading our different cards like via Instagram, like private messages and stuff. And I didn't really know anything about them. I had those for a while and I got them for a present. And I finally figured, okay, here we're quarantined. Like definitely the time to dig into these things, right?
Hell yeah.
And man, there's like a really weird. It's a lot of like the rock that was big in the late 80s and early 90s that we know of. And then there's just a couple bands like the Moody Blues that make appearances that doesn't seem to add up. I don't know who was the curator of like the artists that are going to make it to the rock cards past. But there's a couple of like real oddball, and a couple bands I've never even heard of, but
oh yeah. It's in line with the general wackiness of baseball cards back in that era anyway, where you have, error cards and a bunch of other random, the random minor leaguer who gets the rookie card next to Mark McGwire, but never ended up even making it past single A, It's like,
okay, I never collected baseball cards, so I didn't even know that was a thing. So I guess maybe there's like an intent there that you need to throw some curveballs.
Some bullshits in there. All right, Hoag give me the timeout so he can make it.
So, Scotty, I'm gonna cut the podcast just to create a new track right now. So make a little note to yourself.
Yeah, okay, I'll make a note. No,
Okay.
Yeah, no big deal.
Right now, I'm gonna stop.
This is my note.
Boom. All right, so we were talking about, you wanted to know a little bit about this story with Full Service. Full Service meets Badfish.
Full Service meets Badfish. Yeah, let's talk about that because man, I don't know how long ago it was, but it was the beginning. It was the beginning of like a great friendship amongst all of us, and also just some killer shows. So you take it. Tell us how it all happened.
Killer shows, killer times. I'm gonna kick it to Bonesaw, but first I want to share a quick story about.
Do it.
Yeah, you know what I'm gonna say? It's
the first time you were on your deathbed when we met.
I was on my deathbed. We had a show with you. We were invited to play by you guys, with you guys at what was that place in Baton Rouge?
Varsity Theater.
Varsity, and I had just a monster sore throat, just a brutal one, and under a bunch of blankets in the van on the way up. I actually didn't sing that show, but I got there, and Bonesaw kept telling us like the week leading up. He's like, these guys are like big time. We got to really make a good impression, and we want to get more shows. So let's put on our best shit. I get there, and I'm coughing up a lung and looking gross, and I go into the green room to meet you guys, and you all just take like 2 steps back, like get the fuck away.
Here are these Rhode Islanders who are like grinding through like a 6, probably 7-week tour. The last thing you need is in the deep South, far from home, to pick up like the flu or whatever bullshit you had. And that was a great first impression. I don't know how we survived that. And also just the horror of my first time singing lead in a show being that show.
So you sang lead, Bone. You sang lead for that whole show. You just took basically all of Hoagie's parts.
It's just a prayer at every note that I can hit those sweet high notes that Hoag can hit from behind his kit there as the lead singer. But we muscled through it, I guess. But the initial connection came because your manager agent at the time, Mike Maeda, booked a club in New York where we played a few times on our first couple tours. and made the connection. And then when y'all came to Austin for the first or second time, he asked us for the connect on some clubs and stuff, and we were actually out on the road for the first one, so we recommended another local band that played that first show with y'all.
Okay.
And then waited for a while. When it came back around, and you were coming through the South again, then we were able to make the connection. And Mike and I had a whole bunch of back and forth, and I kept being like, man, the combination is good. I know, put us on a tour. And he's like, Badfish doesn't bring bands on tours. We want one-offs or whatever. I was like, yeah, but I mean, make an exception for us because it'd be great. And I think we'd really hit it off. And he was such a hard no. He's like, he did what a good manager agent does, protects the band and everything. And then, and then we came, after that Baton Rouge show, y'all came farther into Austin, and we actually got to hang out, and you guys really, came to the park with us, and we played some soccer, went swimming.
What was our first hang? I don't remember, like, our first true non-show hang.
We played soccer, and I think, Scott, you played with us. You didn't always jump in on the soccer games, but I think you played, and your merch guy, Colby, played, and he got drilled in the chest super hard. Colby did with, like, a point-blank kick from, I think it was Smell, that put Colby out or something like that. Or was it you that got hit?
No, and I don't think I think I was hanging at the park, and I think I just did my own thing.
Okay.
But I remember you guys playing, and I remember Colby getting drilled for sure. And yeah, just add that to the list of shit that just happens to him throughout the years on tour. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, and then we all went and swam Barton Springs Pool, even though it was just January. It was pretty cold, and that was kind of our first chance to really hang,
Yeah.
And then it was a sold-out show at Stubbs, and I think even Joel's wife was there. We met her the first time.
Joel's little baby was there.
Yeah, when Brady was first
Wow.
born.
Yeah, so that's how long ago that was. Wow.
Yeah. And then, so then after we had a chance to hang, I think somebody, maybe y'all had gotten a CD and actually gave it a spin on the rest of the tour, the next tour, and then, somehow maybe the word got to Mike that maybe we could do a tour together, and we, that kind of set us on our way.
Yeah, we became like hardcore fans. And I remember Ben was with us at the time, and I think that The Dig, your CD, The Dig, one of my favorites. But I remember distinctly it sitting in our van, maybe up on the dash somewhere, and seeing it every day. And I don't know, you get a lot of CDs when you're traveling from other bands, and it just never really we never put it in. And then one day Ben put it in, and we were like, holy shit, what is going on here? This is next level. And yeah, then we were kind of off, and it wasn't too long after that. I think you guys were probably already working on the follow-up to that.
Yep.
Earth Still Wants You.
Earth Still Wants You, yeah. Which another great album, and I mean, we were all in at that point, and that probably had something to do with us saying, let's get these guys on some more shows. We want to hear this music live. We want to hang with these guys. We like these guys. And I guess we were kind of from there, we just kind of went on and progressed, and we were off to the races.
Oh yeah, it gave our band so many opportunities to do cool stuff. First of all, to get on a real tour in front of real stages and big crowds, because our other tours had been, whatever we could book.
Bullshit,
Yeah.
Scott. Our other tours were bullshit.
There were some good shows, but it wasn't with real production, with real sound, with fans and stuff, and a chance to really put on a show that we had always wanted to put on. And so you gave us that opportunity.
Had you already done any takeover stuff before you started playing with us,
No.
or was that?
No.
So that was after. Okay, so
we did the takeover tour before we met y'all.
No, we didn't.
It was maybe we played a few times, but then it was in the interim we did the takeover tour, and then we came back
Okay.
and started touring together.
Oh, so here that okay. So yeah, you're right.
I know.
But that was crucial. That was crucial.
Wait,
Scott.
let's stop. This is the brotherly love that I was talking about. This is it.
Oh, you ain't seen nothing yet. We're getting along
feel
right
it.
now.
I know.
If we disagree, then there's going to be fireworks.
So what? Can you explain the takeover? Because that's actually one of the coolest things I think I've ever heard that any band has ever done ever. So
Thanks, guys.
let's hear about it.
So, we had like Bonesaw just said, we had done some tours, and I just characterized them as entirely bullshit.
You have no idea how hard I worked
Hey,
to set
shut
up
up, I'm
those
talking
bullshit
here.
tours.
There's the brotherly love. Yeah, no, he set up these tours. They were good. They got our, if nothing else, they let us cut our teeth just being on the road and traveling.
Here's the thing: we don't go on that tour. We don't play
the
that.
fuck up and stop.
We don't play that bullshit tour in New York. We don't meet Mike. Then we don't meet Badfish. Then we don't get on the way. That's the thing. You have to tour, even if it's a bullshit tour.
I know. I was just about to volley a compliment your way.
Damn.
And you couldn't wait. But I was going to say, it got us on the road, and that's what Bonesaw's big thing was. Is we just need to get on the road and get used to traveling and playing shows night after night, even if some of them suck. So we did that for a while, and after a couple years, we had a meeting. It was I'll never forget it. It was on the back deck, which you just rebuilt 2 days ago. 30 feet from where we're talking right now. We all gathered on the back deck, and Bonesaw said, "We need a shot of adrenaline to our touring lives. What can we do? Any ideas on the table?" I maintain that I came up with the idea for the Takeover tour. He maintains that he did. But anyway, we came up with this thing where we said, what if we like a virus, to bring it back to
The movie.
Oh, that's good. Good stuff, man.
Oh, and that, yeah.
like a virus, we would piggyback onto a host, a bigger band. And we said, okay, there's an idea. And we would play in the parking lots or before the shows? Yeah. Okay, so we looked up some bands and what their routing was. And we had been huge fans of 311 growing up and into young adulthood. So they were doing a tour that summer of 2008, and it was roughly aligned with what we wanted to do. And so we did it, and it was how many weeks?
So by what we wanted to do, he means it just happened that they had a tour in the summer, and they had a 16 date run where it started in Philadelphia, where Hoag and I grew up, and we had a lot of connections, and went all through the East Coast and the Southeast, which is where we had been doing these bullshit tours. So it kind of it just worked, and their tour ended with back-to-back nights in Austin, and it was like, wow, there's a lot of things lined up for us right there. And,
yeah, that's perfect.
It was so perfect. And 311 had that kind of tailgating vibe they had been cultivating for a long time on their Unity tours, that were more well-known for things like Fish or the Dead, but still people were there, before the shows, hanging out. And, you need to have the context, ye listener, of like what was happening in the music business at that time, which is like 2008 was like peak MySpace. So the music world was just flooded with people putting out content, but it was all online, like check me out on MySpace, yada yada yada. And so we wanted to try and do something. It became just impossible to cut through that bullshit. And so we're like, well, we have to just take it in person and do the opposite. And that's why we tried to do the Takeover tour. We made 8,000 demos, which our bass player Twink was supposed to be stamping and labeling in the van in between, but he frequently messed it up. We were handing those out, at all the shows and stuff. So
There's a great scene in the documentary where Bonesaw just excoriates us for, I'll explain that word to you later, Bonesaw. Excoriates us for not being on top of the demo game.
yeah.
I saw that the takeover. Is it a documentary about the takeover specifically, or is it more
Take over the movie.
I mean, I remember seeing that and really enjoying it, but I don't remember that. Now I'll have to go back and watch it, which I will do.
That was the other piece of it.
Because that sounds like a great scene.
Yeah, I mean, the other piece of it was we brought a documentary film crew to come document it, so that we would hopefully have something else to put out after. And again, in the context, this was before, somebody on our tour had the first iPhone we'd ever seen. So it was before, everybody had a camera and was documenting fucking everything. So it gave us a chance to put out this documentary afterwards, which is what really, in hindsight, that was what gave us the upside, because putting out the movie and some of the connections we made on that tour opened up the opportunities that came as a result, like touring with 311 and doing some of their cruises and then the other stuff that we got from there.
But that's where you guys came in, because in the interim between finishing the Takeover tour and then eventually getting picked up for a lot of cool stuff with 311, you guys took us under your wing, and then we got to play legitimate shows in major venues, and so we wouldn't have been able to. I think we probably would have been too rookie or too
For sure. And that's the thing is like you guys, you taught us how to be professionals, really, which I don't think we've ever told you about or thanked you for. But on that interim time, you taught us how to be professionals and act like professionals in real venues and deal with, talent buyers and, all of those things, how to perform and how to prepare to be ready for the shows and, survive that world. So you guys, that was one other big thing y'all added for us was just teaching us how to be pros.
You also taught us how to party well.
That's true.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, like, I mean, we were probably just learning the etiquette of being. I don't know. We had probably just learned this shit, and you guys were, maybe thinking that we had it all figured out, but we most certainly hadn't. I think we were just maybe had done it just slightly longer than you guys had. But I'm glad to hear that there was some. We were able to, in some way, kind of help out, but and then the partying, of course, and I think that it's fair to say I could probably take responsibility for that part of it.
A good amount of it. So I'll try to be humble, but I have to give credit where credit is due. Which is I think within reason is an important part of a traveling band of musicians. To blow off some steam now and again, right?
Definitely. And here's one thing that I loved about Badfish and how our relationships developed with our personalities in our band. But y'all have very distinct personalities with you, Joel, Pat, Dorian, and Colby, and others who've come and gone.
Sure.
But at least for me, I think all of us, everybody developed a little bit of a different relationship with each guy, but they were all really genuine, and partially because y'all have very different interests and we have different interests. So like Joel and I connected a lot on like the soccer and going for runs and like talking music business thing, and then he would connect differently with Hoag because of their sort of sarcastic.
No, I never connect with Joel.
But and that was what became really special with y'all, was that like there was individual friendships developed with all the different, like you all are some pretty weird personalities in the best possible way, and I think we had some pretty outlandish personalities as well, and somehow they all connected individually but also as a group.
I think
Totally.
for Badfish more than for Full Service, you guys really, you three are, and you four, Dorian, are so different. I think Full Service was more alike than you guys were. I mean, I'd be interested to hear you riff a little bit about what is your thing with Pat? What is your thing with Joel? What is your thing with Dorian? You know what I mean?
Oh boy. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny. I guess from an outside point of view, we might seem different. I feel like being on the inside of it, clearly we're different in a lot of ways, but like not that much different. But maybe it's just weird when you're that close to it. And you kind of work hard, or at least pay attention to everyone else's sort of how their buttons can be pushed, so you can, I think, hopefully avoid doing that. And I think that for the most part we've gotten good at avoiding doing that, but pushing each other's buttons. So I guess it's sort of like you accentuate the positive in a way, instead of really focusing on, we're so different in all these ways. But inevitably, you have to, it's not just all fun and games, and sometimes you have to get down to discussing things or and when we were doing the Scotty Don't project, which was our original project, and there was, I guess, more of so it wasn't just, okay, we're going out and just playing Sublime songs. Now we're creating music, and we all have an opinion about what this kind of music should be. Mm-hmm. That was a whole different element of togetherness and trying to be on the same page about something collectively that really, I think, exposed some of our differences in a way. And that's fine. I think that's just how it goes. And ultimately, that project we just sort of abandoned, and still, still very proud of what we did, of course. But for us personally, as members, as individuals, that really exposed some of those differences. I don't know about if I could riff individually about each. I mean, I get along with all the guys like very, very well. Like I think that for the most part, we get along better than like so many other bands out there.
Oh yeah, just the longevity is proof of that.
Yeah.
Of you three.
Yeah.
You're definitely on something though with the Scotty Don't thing when you really were ramping that up. Also coincides with when we started hanging more. So we had a good front row seat of all that. And you're right, pursuing like
that's right.
the dual missions of like growing the Badfish business, expanding that fan base, using the Sublime songs, making that business huge, but also using that to launch this creative thing. And in addition to that, creating the creative thing, the Scotty Don't songs, is a much different. That's like three big pieces, and it's hard to do all those things on the road. And you should be proud of what you did for those couple of years. First of all, the songs were awesome, and loved singing them. And you guys were also doing like 3 hours worth of shows in those days.
Yeah, that's monster performance time. The double set thing. And to share a quick memory, remember Scotty Don't had a song called Karate.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when we're like, hey, the full service dudes were like, hey, tonight when they play karate, before the show, let's go to Walmart and get like some karate outfits, and then bum rush the stage and pantomime karate on that. And
wow.
God bless you guys. You guys were, I still think about that and be like, man, how did they not kick us off the tour that night?
No, we love that kind of shit.
It did become part of the culture. I know that y'all have with other bands too, but as far as, with us, like sometimes y'all would come out and do some trumpets with us every once in a while, like on the 311 cruise, like everybody came out, and did some of our song Hi Ho, and like we would come on.
Oh, that was so much fun.
Oh my
that was
gosh.
So much fun.
At some point there was like tacit permission given to just the stage is ours.
Yeah.
It's not yours,
Yeah.
it's not theirs. It's just if someone's
It's
on
all-
stage, you can come on.
Yeah. And, remember Pat started coming and playing the chorus of Hi Ho while I could take my surfboard out. We would do some of that stuff. And then, of course, y'all invited me up for some jams with the Pawn Shop jams were some really great ones. And that kind of. And then, Scott, there's a couple of sleepers that happened only a few times that were awesome, which is like when you came out and played Gymnasium, our song, on acoustic guitar.
On acoustic guitar, I can't tell you how nervous I was because I am not. That's not my primary instrument, so I was so nervous. But I love that song so much, so it was like this conflicting, inside me. Like I want to get out there. And I love the song so much, but like, man, I have to really focus on the part. It was, but that was so cool. And I think I also played drums a few. I don't know. I feel like Hotter in the House.
You
and
did Hotter in the House.
Freezing Dub.
Yeah, you did Pietà in Columbus.
I did Pietà. That's right. Yeah.
Where
That's a
did
good
you
one.
do? I remember those other ones, but let's see if we can come up with a city. Where did you do Hotter in the House? Do you remember, Bonesaw?
I don't remember Hotter in the House, but he also did the guitar in Columbus at the same time.
Did he?
Gymnasium one.
Okay, maybe we won't.
I think I did Freezing Dub in a lot of places. I think that was a tour where that was like, I'll jump up and it happened several nights. Whereas I think Hotter in the House was, I feel like I want to say Dallas House of Blues, but then again, I think that also may have been when I did Gymnasium on the guitar. So it's there, know how it is. Time passes and I can't. It all runs together, yeah.
We did a cover of some Scotty Don't movies on TV a few times as well, which is a great song y'all had, and we played that.
Yeah,
we just the band covered that.
Yeah,
I don't know. Was there ever a time we played it and then y'all played it again that same night?
I think that you played it after we stopped doing the Scotty Don't project. I think that one of our Austin shows, I remember hearing you guys play it.
Okay. Yeah, that would be better etiquette because, you don't want to play the song and then have the headliner play their song. Like, remember somewhere in Florida, it was like some place that begins with an S that had tennis courts. Remember we went?
Oh, yeah. Captain's Hiram's. Whatever.
Nice. All right, Bonesaw.
Oh, yeah, Sebastian, Florida.
Sebastian. Yeah.
Hey, we were both right.
Yeah. The owner of the bar played some Sublime on the PA before your set, and Joel was fucking livid. He's like, I don't know how many times I have to tell you, like, it's not cool to play like what we're about to play, like right before we're gonna play it.
Oh my god, but that happens all the time. I mean, there's bands that will play Sublime songs, and I almost feel like, I don't know, for what we're doing. I mean, we're doing a tribute to Sublime, but Sublime is a very popular band. So like, if another band plays a Sublime song, or if they play one, to me, it's like, yeah, it's like you maybe roll your eyes a little bit, but it's not a big deal. It just seems like a weird thing to do if you're a band, but like if it comes over the PA system, I mean, yeah, those are they're popular songs. What are you gonna do? You know?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Joel, chill, Joel.
Yeah, come on, Joel. Go.
Can you do one
take
more
it
Joel
easy.
impression? My favorite Joel quote. Joel's got a lot of great quotes, but it was when we were taking a photo outside in the alley after a show, and these two girls asked Joel if they could take a picture with him. Hoag, what do you
So
think?
Joel is, I mean, Joel is just the bass player in Badfish, granted, but still, he's a major part of your band, and you guys have a shit ton of fans and a lot of people at your shows. And he also is like a big, I don't know. It just struck me as funny that he was surprised when we were loading out, and some people came up and said, "Can we take your picture?" And Full Service was like, "Yeah, totally." And they're like, "No, not you, him." And Joel looked at us, looked at them, looked at us, looked at them, and goes, "Is this a joke?"
Was this a joke?
He was so not used to like getting a lot of fan love, which I think that's an energy he puts out himself. But I think I've shat on Joel enough for this podcast. I want to ask a little roundtable question.
Okay. I have
And
time
a
for one
question.
round table
Okay.
question.
I was gonna say question.
Yeah, I know you were.
Yeah.
I could feel it.
You could.
I could feel it.
And it's it's okay if not, and it's okay if so. But does anyone, finances and career considerations aside, does anyone feel like if you really look at it, you might be happier than you were pre-quarantine?
Career stuff aside,
Yes. I know it's hard to.
yeah, I mean, this is such a sort of a singular type of event that we're going through. It's tough to even really have any perspective of, but I'm not unhappy, but I think that the way this has sort of progressed for me mentally and emotionally, a lot of people have likened it to like grieving a loss of something. And I think that that's pretty apt, because there's the loss of potentially like my career as a musician.
Yeah.
So I think that there's something to be said about that. So I think that there was a couple weeks where I was quite unhappy, and I was really just down in the dumps, and I've since kind of crawled out of that hole, and I feel a bit of a renewed sense of ambition and purpose and enthusiasm about doing things like this podcast and exploring what else I could do with my life to supplement my income, whether or not, the band continues. And I know that we will, but I don't know in what capacity, because this is really shaking things up. So
Yeah.
the idea of looking to find out what in my skill set could be put to good use to make some money is a cool thing to think about. So there's an excitement about it. So I feel like it's like a lateral move in terms of happiness. It's just a different kind of happiness. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really, really good answer. I'm glad you're coming out of it a little bit, because I mean, it is a scary time for y'all in particular. Like you might not get the green light to even do your thing for a long time. You don't even know. And being a tribute band, it's some of these bands are trying to do things live stream, which I have my own feelings about, but that's you guys could still pull something off like that, but it's a little bit different.
It's a little different. I mean, we don't have. Yeah, it's a little bit different, but we're going to try to figure out a way to do something. But yeah, anyway, and I'd love to hear you, maybe not now because I know your time is short, but I'd love to hear your thoughts about the live stream thing in general. That piques my interest.
All right. I know what you're getting at, Hope. What are you saying about you feeling?
Well, I was just I'm a big Jim Carrey fan, and before the coronavirus stuff, I saw an interview with him on the David Spade show. It's got a name. I don't think it's called the David Spade show, but he was saying, it was an aside. He said blah 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 blah, and then he did a parenthetical, and he said, and really, I think all we're striving for is our own disappearance.
to be happy. And this isn't exactly a disappearance, but it's a shrinking of our identity and our world and our socializing. And I think, a lot of the, I think a little part of everybody yearns for the apocalypse in a way.
Okay. Yeah.
And
I mean, like
that,
you've been scared of it so long, you just want it to come already, and then you can fucking deal with it.
I don't know. I think it might have to do with like wanting just to shrink our world into a more of a, just go back in time a little bit to smaller units of interaction and
Okay.
Unfracture your brain.
and expectations. I think that was a big thing too. Like, not, when it first hit, it was scary, and then a week or two in, there was a little bit of relief about like, well, nothing's expected of me, and maybe that has to do with the internet, but we can just breathe for a second.
Yeah, you can have permission to like whatever it is that you're doing. It's like, okay, well, it's fine. It's the apocalypse. Like that's
Yeah. I know what. Yeah, I can feel that in a way. Like there's a little bit. Well, it's kind of just like the whole world is, not the whole world, or there's certainly so many people like working harder than they ever have to like get us through this.
Yeah.
The people that can work and that need to be working. So I don't want to say everybody, but so many people are kind of on pause, and I think that there is a little bit. Maybe we don't want to admit it, but we're being honest with each other here. There is a little bit of a, that feels kind of not cool, but it feels comfortable, or you invite that in some way. Who Drew Carey? Wow, the philosopher.
Yeah. Well, Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey.
Oh, Jim Carrey. So definitely the philosopher.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes a little bit of over philosophizing. But Drew Carey, by the way, was at a Badfish show in Las Vegas.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I did not know that. What?
Yeah,
Are
it
you
was
serious?
in Las Vegas. It was when I went with you guys without full service. I went with you guys to shoot some daily like video diary stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And it was Super Bowl weekend. You guys had just played, and Drew Carey. We went up to like the VIP box. It was I think it was me. It was like all of Badfish and me, and we were up in this box watching Steel Panther, and they shouted out Drew. They're like, Drew Carey's out there tonight, and they spotlighted Drew Carey in the audience.
So was he there to see Steel Panther or Badfish?
Who knows?
And now that you say Steel Panther was playing, it makes sense that I don't remember that. If I think back to how that night went, and I think that I was side stage for Steel Panther, sort of like, should I do it? Should I run on stage? I feel like that happened that night.
See,
really?
we had our like references.
We had our like all access credentials, and I think I had some friends there, and I thankfully didn't do that, but
You did.
Anyways,
you had some friends there. Your sister was there. That was the same night that Pat drove me in a. It was it wasn't a Lamborghini, but it was a similar kind of car. I don't know how he got his hands on one.
He just did I think he just did a daily rental for some like sick car. I mean that was definitely when we were like pre-marriage.
Yeah.
Okay, we're not worried so much about spending our money in weird ways. Just a little bit here to have fun, especially in Vegas.
Yes, let it be known that we do predate marriage, and as y'all predate marriage for me. And baby, clearly, which you can hear, she's crying. So,
well, you heard.
Sadly, I think this is the end for me, Scott. I'll leave y'all
you
to
made it. You made it a lot longer than I thought you would, man.
You did. You
props
got
to
a good,
Ramona for that. Anyway, I gotta bounce.
minutes.
Love to you and the family, Scott. Thanks for chatting with us, man.
It's great to chat with you, and yeah, send our love back to Colleen and the baby and everyone there.
Cool. I'll talk to y'all later. You guys finish up. Can't wait to listen to this later.
Yeah, man.
See you, Bonesaw. That was good.
That was great. I'm so glad that Bone had all that time with the baby on his shoulder. That incredible.
Me too. I think he's pushing his luck a little bit. He's been using a lot of "Can I do this?" currency this week.
Yeah.
We had our neighbor. So I will make a confession. We've included our single mid-30s or upper 30s male neighbor into our quarantine circle because
I think
he's all he's got.
I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't think that you need to say that with like guilt or anything because, well, like I said, we did the same with my cousin's family because we were together as this whole thing was progressing, and they're an extension of our family. So, I mean, I could just as easily have 7 people in this house.
Right.
So like, what's the difference really? As long as like you're mindful of where everyone's going and whatnot, I don't see that as that big of a problem. But
yeah.
So you're doing that.
Yeah, and earlier in the week he came over to do some recording, and Bonesaw bought some free time there, and but I've heard these stories about when you become a parent, and Bonesaw has been pretty cavalier about in the months leading up to the Ramona's birth. He'd be like, "Oh, I still got time for everything, dude. No, it's gonna be fine," and everyone was telling him, no, you're not going to have time for anything.
Yeah.
It's proven to be more on the latter side if he doesn't have much time for anything. But
I think that's a reality that you just can't understand.
We'll take him when we can get him.
Yeah. Very glad that he was able to join us there. Yeah. So what I was going to ask you is, and I think that it makes sense to kind of sort of start to wrap up soon anyway. So what I was going to ask you is to just tell us a little bit about what, how Full Service kind of morphed into, if you want to call it that, 2-player, and how that whole thing transitioned.
Yeah. Okay. So Full Service for a while, a couple years. So one of our main, we've had a couple main bass players, Twinkie P and Sonny, that spanned our touring career. After, I don't know how long, maybe 4 or 5 years, Sonny got an itch to do something else. And that he decided to do something which he's still doing to this day, which is jewelry design. And he makes great stuff. But it made sense to us because he wasn't a primary songwriter. He was playing bass and he was an integral part of the band, but it didn't feel like his thing. So he left. We got a new bass player, started touring again. The original 3, me, Smell, and Bonesaw, were in there touring with this new bass player, Weber. People grow up and their priorities change, especially if they're not, to use the phrase again, a primary songwriter in a band. I feel like maybe someone doesn't have the same sense of ownership of the enterprise that the main creative forces do. Not to say that the others aren't a creative force. I mean, Smell in particular was Full Service. There could be no Full Service without Smell. So when Smell made the decision that he wanted to advance his life on a family level, get married, help really provide, and at that time sort of stop living a pretty lean existence. That also made sense to us. So all of a sudden we were left with just the 2 of us, the brothers. And like I said, we thought, well, we're not going to do Full Service. It wouldn't be Full Service because we thought we've had several bass players, but we thought that Smell was an integral part. And so we immediately, I think it was like, I gave myself like a day and a half to take a break and mourn. And then I was like, fuck it. Let's start a new band. This is let's find a name. Let's start writing songs, making demos. And we settled on being a 2-piece called 2-player. And we made a record in the first year after Full Service broke up, and it went more of like a proggy direction than I think Bonesaw thought it was going to, but he kind of deferred to my whims in this case.
You were you were angling more for the proggy stuff.
Yeah, I think I wanted to rebel a little bit or something. I don't know, but so that's how it transitioned. I mean, even when bands break up, and even when it's a band that's been tight, socially as
Mhm.
well as creatively. I mean, I feel like for the vast majority of our full service career, everyone was happy and we all got along real well. But even in those cases, when a band dissolves, just as any business dissolves, there were ugly moments.
Mhm.
Figuring out how, even just things like how it's announced or just how it's dealt with generally, finances
Right.
included.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and but we got through that, and I think about it a lot, Scott. I find myself like looking. I love two player, but the truth is we only got so far before Bonesaw had a baby, and we had to really slow down and pretty much halt operations. But I find myself like looking up full service videos and stuff like that, and
Okay.
listening to old albums and
Yeah.
reminiscing and glory dazing. I really sort of, I'm extremely happy where I am now, and where I've grown up, and I've found the woman of my dreams, and that I didn't never thought I would find, living the life that I had been living. But I do look at those days as, like, I get sad when I think about him, and I don't talk to Smell as much as I should, and
Mm.
uh, every once in a while I'll text him like an old video and open it back up, and we have a good little exchange.
Yeah.
But though, in many ways, it was an era. There's a few eras in a lifetime, and that was one of ours. And I feel like this is a moment where we're moving out of that era, and especially now when things, like you said, things in the music industry are changing so deeply. Um, Another era begins now.
For sure. I think, yeah, we're all forced into a new, whether we like it or not, like it's going to be a new era. But I think that if you should be very, and I'm sure you are very proud of that part of your musical life. I mean, full service is, I know that it never, for me, I just can't understand how you guys didn't achieve like a higher profile that I feel like you guys deserved. And you, like, man, you guys work your asses off like so hard that it's kind of bewildering to me, that it wasn't just received on a grander scale.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you saying that. And there are a few people in this world who, when they say something, it means that much more, and I count you as one of those.
Well, thank you.
But I wanted to ask you something. Are you able to how are you able to be playing drums? How much drums are you playing? That was a weird sentence.
Is it how much? Oh, yeah. How much drums? Do you say you don't say how many drums?
I don't know.
Because I can tell you how many drums I'm playing. It's usually
Exactly.
4 or
I don't want to
5.
hear
Usually
like
4 or
9 or
5.
10 drums.
How often am I playing the drums?
Yes,
How
that's
frequently am I
better.
able to play the drums?
Yes.
Not a lot. Well, so I have a kit at our rehearsal space, and I've been working on some song ideas like I mean, since forever, just like random things when I can, get out of the house and get over there, which I've been doing a little bit more, trying to find, pick my, what did you call it when Bonesaw, the currency,
Oh, I can't remember. What was it?
it was really good, whatever it was.
Okay.
But, you try to be very kind of, you want to be there for the family and stuff. So you want to be careful about how you plan those nights out. And for me, it's not a night out, it's a night by myself working on music. But anyways, those nights happen, once, maybe twice a week. And in those cases, I'm playing the drums, but I'm playing the drums to create some music. So I'm not, from like a physical point of view, I'm probably way out of practice by now, like stamina wise and
Right.
my technique and everything. So I'm playing the drums here and there, and I can say that I still know how to play the drums, but it's definitely, I'm not like shedding. God, I should really be breaking out this is the time to break the books out, right? And to get back to like the basics. I've said that to myself 100 times over the past 5 years, I'm sure. And now is really the time to do it, but the time just isn't there. But I'm playing as much as I can. And I'm diving into some music, just writing stuff, whether it's a riff or a groove or occasionally a melody, very rarely a lyric, but just those creative things. I'm really trying to do a good job of documenting, writing them down, recording them into my phone. When I'm at the space, I have, a multi-track setup there that I can use. So the playing is, it's there, but I still feel like I'm way behind. Like if we did a show now, like a 90, 100-minute Badfish show, I don't know, like I definitely would have calluses on my hands, the next day.
Yeah. That's a good point about like the different kinds of practice and rehearsing versus practice versus or rehearsing versus jamming versus practicing versus recording. It's like there's such different disciplines, and one always suffers if you spend a lot of time on the other, but that's just how it goes, I mean, and it's almost like a sport, or if you do a lot of cardio, you might when you're trying to gain muscle, you're not going to gain muscle because you're doing a lot of cardio, but whatever you want to work at that time. So I think that's, and think of it this way, I mean, you wouldn't get that time to do what you're doing now, I don't think, otherwise. Like if you were doing Badfish as usual,
exactly,
you wouldn't be flexing those muscles. So
exactly,
it's all right.
So yeah, so it's a good thing that as long as I'm doing something that is related to music, whether it's performing or creating, recording, practicing, whatever it is, I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
How about yourself? Are you I don't even know what your sort of practice discipline or schedule normally is. So I guess what have you done and how has that changed?
So first of all, that's funny because I do have those days when I'm like, oh, I'm making a drum part, or I'm doing a song and that involves a drum part, and then I'm moving to work on something else with the song, and then I'm always like, I drummed today, but it doesn't really count. Yeah. But it does count because it's just a different skill of drumming. It's recorded drumming, which is a lot different from live drumming. And but yeah, I've been able to get in there, and I like to. My regimen is pretty regimented. I don't know if you can say that. My regimen is regimented. But I will, and I just did. So, because I have to figure out how to work out the vocal practice as well, and make sure that I get in time for that. Because if there's anything my dad taught me, is to, if you're sidelined, you do the workouts and you be ready for game time. But he did teach me that. And so what I do every day is I do a 17-minute vocal warm up. And then I figure if I can get in 30 minutes of sung vocalization a day, then I get that 17 minutes in for the warm up, and then I'll do however many songs gets me to 30. So 4 or 5 songs where I'm singing, like some 2-player full service shit, whatever. I bounced all our stuff down so that I can play along with it. Doesn't have a drum track. I play on top of the tracks. Which is another story. It's depressing that like a year and a half ago, there's 4 dudes in this room. Fast forward, there's 1 dude with a fucking iPad and tracks.
Oh man.
But so then I get in that singing and drumming. And then I'll do like maybe 30 minutes of some particular like very small goal type of thing. Like recently it's been like Whaler stuff, like Carlton Barrett reggae, Bob Marley stuff, and just picking apart his parts. And so that's pretty much it. I've been playing a lot of reggae beats.
I noticed. So the video that you and Megan did. If I've
Got it, you've got it. Yeah,
If I've got it, you've got it. Which was so cool. But I definitely noticed the reggae groove was real nice there.
Yeah, that was fun. Bonesaw played bass on that,
and it's
sucker.
a really cool tune.
Yeah, she's so good, man. I wish. I think you've met her once, right?
Yeah, I believe once when we kind of did a fly in and we had to fly out like the next morning, so there was no hang time really.
Yeah,
but I
no
met her
hang
then.
time. Yeah, no hang time. But
so I briefly met her then, and but I didn't know that she was musical in any way until when you posted that video and you gave her. Did she kind of write that tune?
She wrote the whole thing, and
yeah, it's really good.
And she's a good singer. She plays a little bass, plays a little guitar.
Yeah.
She fucking builds puppets, man. It's
wow. You have found your dream.
I know, dude.
Dude. Wow.
Yeah.
What I guess the last thing I'd like to ask you, and it probably seems like an obvious question to ask on a podcast of this nature anyways, but like when I'm asking of everybody I talk to is what are you watching or reading or listening to? Anything that's happening that's really cool that you could recommend to people?
Oh yeah, great question. That could be just the start of a podcast in itself.
Well, I mean, you and I still have we have a lot of lost content that we could dive into. So I mean, I'm okay. I'm okay, calling you every week and we can brand this a whole different way, talking about that kind of shit. But unless you're rewatching the Lost series, what are you into? What's something you would recommend to people?
Okay, so let me first go with the TV, and then I'll go to the book. So with the TV,
yeah, hit them all, please.
Yeah. So with the Netflix, for whatever reason, I think for my own circumstance, I'm not currently watching a series that I can really pay attention to, because of, there's an 11-year-old in the house and we have to watch things that are kid friendly. And
Sure.
Evangeline, my soon to be stepdaughter, is staying with us this whole quarantine. She's not going to her dad's at all. So we have not been able to dig into any series. But I will tell you, Scott, for like 2 years, I have my Netflix thing has been The West Wing. And I was a West Wing fan for a long time. And then I decided somewhere along the way, I have trouble tracing how this happened. But basically, my current situation for the past 2 years is every single night, when I go to bed and I close my eyes and lay my head on that pillow,
Yeah.
I put on The West Wing and it plays. I have a spare iPhone. I bought, I have an old one, but still has wireless. And it's just my West Wing machine. And when I go to sleep, I put on The West Wing and it plays all night, 8 hours. And it puts me to sleep immediately. And when I wake up to take a pee or something, it's still playing. Or if it stopped for whatever reason, I turn it back on, puts me to sleep again immediately. So I have a very interesting relationship with Netflix and particularly The West Wing. I'm sorry I can't offer like something new that you know what? I'm going to pivot for a second. There is something great on Netflix. It's called Love is Blind.
I was just fixing my parents' TV yesterday because they couldn't get sound to come out of Netflix. And that happened to be the thing that was on the home screen. So I saw the first 20 seconds of that show, a lot, just trying to get their volume to work, which I eventually did. and I guess I wasn't keyed into it like enough that it was more just like, I need to hear what you're saying, but I know it seems to be a popular show. It was featured on their home screen.
Yeah. So it's terrible, but you're gonna love hating these people.
Oh, it's terrible.
But I mean, it's one of those shows that's just trash. And
It's
I
good
don't.
terrible.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
if you watch it with Vanessa, you guys are gonna be like, it's just you're gonna talk about yourselves. You're gonna talk about other people.
Oh my gosh.
And it's the whole time your mouth will be open and you'll be like holding up one arm close to your face and you'll be tensed up because everything's so horrible and awkward. But
Oh,
also that thing you said about I went over to my parents to help fix the volume on their Netflix is a classic, because haven't we all done that?
that's really a classic. That's I mean, I've been doing that since it was teaching my parents or even my grandparents when I was younger how to program their VCR to record whatever the hell it is that they wanted to record, I guess. Who knows? But yeah, I think every family needs a resident sort of AV guy, and I guess that was me.
Yeah, they do. They do need that.
Yeah, yeah.
We're both that guy for our families, it sounds like.
I think so.
But as far as books go, I do have a book recommendation I'd like to throw out there. It's God, I got to look up who wrote it. But so Megan and I go to Goodwill's a lot just to see what treasures are there, and we were combing through the bookshelves, and she saw, as most of us pick out books, she saw an attractive book cover. This book looks good, So we picked it out. Sat around for a little bit, and I picked it up, cracked it open, and it is delightful. It's called The End of Mr. Y. And listeners can or whomever can look up and find the author. But it's a book about the discovery of a book. So it's a book within a book. The character finds an old book, a rare one, and the character in it has discovered a portal to the fourth dimension. And this sounds cheesy. Well, it sounds like Lost, kind of, but it sounds cheesy. But it's well written, and it's good. It's good.
Okay.
And so the idea is that everyone who has read this book within the book dies because of their journeys into the fourth dimension. So
wow,
this woman is finding herself overcome with this addiction to traveling into the fourth dimension, and the way they deal with what that is like, and how a fourth dimension might feel is fascinating. And it's like it's by a British author, so it has that sort of dark British twang to it.
It has that I know that British kind of tone. Yeah.
But
I'm gonna look that up. Like when we're done here, I'm gonna look that up. That sounds like it's right up my alley.
Yeah, it's good. It's a quick read too.
Yeah.
And I just found this out. I thought to myself, I've never heard of this book, but I think it's very good. But why haven't I heard of it? So I wanted to cross-reference, like, did it get good reviews? Because I do put stock in, like, how things are received publicly. And it did get great reviews. But in the review, I saw it was like, this is a great book, blah, 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 despite the heavy-handed title, which is an obvious substitute for The End of Mystery. But the book is called The End of Mr. Y. And I was like, fuck, I was not smart enough to figure that out on my own.
The End of Mr. Is that the intention with that title?
I guess so. And then I was like, that's a pretty bad pun. But I don't know.
That's a pretty bad pun.
Yeah.
But if you say it can you say it in an English accent? Does it sound more like that?
The End of Mr. Y.
Yeah. No, not really.
No.
Well, in how long ago was this written?
It was like this decade, I think.
Oh, no shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm all in. That sounds like a good one, and it's a quick read. So even better.
It's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
What are you reading? Or are you reading?
I'm reading some nerdy book on the the internet basically, and it's not like a history of the internet, like, ARPANET, yada, yada. It's more like the history of the internet as we know it, and how sort of like from Netscape on, the dial-up ISPs, e-commerce, so your eBays or Amazons, how Microsoft was like behind the ball on browser technology. I don't even know what the name of the book is, honestly. It was something that was like an Amazon recommendation, and I have one of those Kindle readers, so I just downloaded it. It's a breezy, just for me, that's the kind of stuff that is a nice easy read for me, and it's just kind of fun. I don't know what the name. I'll if that interests you, I'll get you the name of it. But
Yeah, please do.
yeah, it's a fun just kind of walkthrough of how everything, all these companies came together, and it was a little bit like a Wild West of how how the internet was before it was what it is now. So it's it kind of walks through all those things. So it's kind of a fun book. And I have a couple on deck. Vanessa reads like crazy, and she's got a couple recommendations for me. I don't even know off the top of my head, but yeah. So music, anything? What should I bump on my car, my truck stereo? I mean, I'm in my truck still. It's dark out, and once we're done, I could just continue to let the party continue here in the truck. So what would I bump?
Yeah, I wish I had something really exciting for you to sink your teeth into, but maybe you can re-sink your teeth into some things.
Yeah, I feel like that I do that a lot more.
Yeah. So what I've been listening to almost exclusively is Concrete Jungle. Well, it's Catch a Fire. Is the Bob Marley and the Wailers album.
Yeah.
And Natty Dread.
Okay.
And so I'm talking to a drummer now. So now we can, there's not many drummers in quarantine I could talk to. So now I can open this up a little bit. So the thing with that drummer, Carly Barrett of the Wailers, of Bob Marley's band, every album, it seemed, he had a different hi-hat trip that he was going on. So you go back to the early days, like Burnin' and Catch a Fire. It was a lot of shuffle, like swing. So
yeah.
like
yeah.
Yeah. And then like with like Nat, and then like what was it, Kaya maybe? Then he went like real slow, so about half that tempo, and it was still swing, but it was like
right.
And then he had this straight album like up. Well, that was a little bit later in the early '80s with Uprising. It was like Work and We and Them and Zion Train. It's like real straight 16th kind of stuff. But then somewhere on like Rastaman Vibration and some other albums, he did this like rattlesnake hi-hat thing. It was like you know what I'm talking about?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, that's a common hi-hat pattern, I think, that gets used all the time. And I feel like, I've been playing drums for a while, so have you, but like I know there's names for all these like grooves and stuff that I just really don't know.
Yeah, I mean
yeah, you don't either. Okay, but you can mimic them pretty well with like beatbox style. A lot of people can't do that, so
yeah.
But I know exactly what you mean. There was a progression. Now, does that line up with the progression of the Wailers as a more traditional ska band that sort of turned into reggae, and then you're talking about the more straight stuff? Is that considered more like a rock steady kind of groove? I mean, that's the closest I can come to even just literally throwing out reggae terminology to see if that fits, and I have honestly no clue. Maybe you do or not. I don't know.
I don't. I still don't know like what each of those rhythms is called, if they're called anything. And then there's the boom boom, the 4 on the floor bass drum, but
Yeah.
I don't know who.
Yeah.
You know, you can figure it out with a internet search, I guess. But I don't know. I never like. Why don't we know that, Scott? Why don't we know what they're?
I've never been much for, you know, I just like playing the music. I've never been much for getting into like, oh, this is this type of rhythm and that. And I mean, I think it's great that people like doing that. I think there's a lot of value in that, but I just like playing the stuff. And I feel like if I hear a groove, I feel like I can sort of approximate it and make it sound decent. And I know you could do the same thing. So maybe we just don't really care to like put words to or try to descriptors to the grooves. We just kind of, as Aerosmith said, let the music do the talking, you know?
Oh, hell yeah. As Aerosmith said. Yeah, no, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, like because sometimes I think if you like well, like actually your bandmate Pat, who went to Berkeley for a year, I think, said I didn't want music to become a math problem. And as soon as you name something or
Yeah.
categorize something, then you think, oh, this is a different thing that I don't know how to play. But it's if you just if you group it all together, then it's just music. It's not X rhythm, you know, in as it relates to reggae, or X rhythm as it relates to metal. So
Yeah. I totally hear that, and I kind of agree with that. Like it almost turns it into like bookwork versus feeling a little bit to try to describe it or put it in a bucket, whether it's a feel or some sort of polyrhythm or I don't know, you know, scales and modes and all this stuff. I like it, and I think it's valuable to know about that stuff, but I think that there's some real great songs that have been written by people who have no freaking clue what any of that stuff is. So does it matter that much? I don't know. I mean, it's, I guess, sort of a heady kind of musician stuff here, but
yeah,
I know exactly where you're coming from when you say that.
there's a great clip which it's like I've done some deep dives. I'm sure you have. I've done some deep dives on Guns N' Roses, and in particular
Oh, yeah.
Slash. Well, and Axl. But I found one on Slash one time. I don't know if we'll be able to find it again. But he's talking about someone's like, you know, he's doing a video for Dunlop or fucking Seymour Duncan or Les Paul or something, and they're
Mhm.
like, "Hey, play something, Slash." And he like starts to fuck around a bit, and it kind of sucks. And he just looks up. He's like, "I never know what to do when people say that."
Yeah.
And he's like, you know, for a guy like Slash or someone like him, it's like if there's not a reason to do something, if we're not just really doing it, I don't know what to do.
And you know, I could totally understand that. You know, I'm nowhere near as proficient as Slash is at my instrument, the way he is at his guitar, with his guitar. But you know, like there's some people that if you ask that question or if you tell them, oh, just play something, like they have like 10 things on deck, like mind-blowing shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm definitely not one of those people. If someone's like play something, I probably play like the most simple rock beat like that I can. Right. I'll play that and I'll try to make it like kind of in the groove and in the pocket a little bit.
Fattest
like
thing you've ever heard. Yeah.
It might be like I try to make it sound like the coolest 4/4 groove you've ever heard. That's the best I can do. Like I don't have a bag of tricks. I just don't, you know.
Yeah.
Some people do.
Yeah, but do you ever think about that? Like, do you ever wake up? Because sometimes I wake up, I'm like, I need to learn a bag of tricks, and we have a lot of tricks. It's not even that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this sense that I don't know. You got, especially now with all the shit you see on the internet and people posting their awesome shit, and you got to keep up. You got to keep up, but I know. So I guess sometimes you just got to think like. Well, nobody can speak like I can. So, and that's all. As long as you develop a voice, then you know if you have a voice, then you don't have to worry about tricks so much.
Yeah, if you have a voice and you're confident in your voice, you don't have to worry about how loud you're speaking, in a sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. But it also takes a long time to develop a voice.
Totally, and it's always a work in progress, which is, I think, is something that it will always be my philosophy. Like I'm never where I want to be, and I'm okay with it, but I'm always striving for a little bit more, even if it's very incremental. the progress I make, it's still progress, and that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, and I hope I'm not dragging this on and on, but do you ever, like, for the most part, when I see myself playing drums on a video, for instance, I guess how else would I see it? I can't leave my body and watch myself. But anyway, are you happy with the way you look? Because I ask that because sometimes I am, and sometimes I'm like, man, I look a little like, the heights of my drums look weird. Like,
Yeah, yes and no. More no, I guess. Like sometimes I'm like, I feel like my posture or my ergonomics look awkward to me, and when I'm playing, I feel very natural and comfortable playing. Like, but I when I look at a video, I'm like, man, I look uncomfortable playing. But then I'll have people tell me that I look so comfortable playing, and that I'm playing in an effortless way. So I don't know to believe, if I'm to believe them or myself, but ultimately, I guess I just have to believe myself while I'm playing, right? Like that's really the most important thing. But sometimes someone will catch me at a cool angle, maybe from the side, and it looks kind of cool, but it's more often that I don't like it. Is that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. And well, I mean, part of it is that it's hard to get a good angle of a drummer, but another part is that it's such a, we have to be sitting down. Like, we can't move our fucking lower body. So we're behind the 8 ball in terms of that. But right. Bonesaw, for instance, can go out the front of the stage and like spread eagle and fucking duck down with his Les Paul right between his, his knees. But
and he does.
With us, we kind of got to keep in the same general space,
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I guess I was gonna say you do. I agree with those people. You do look very comfortable, and it almost looks like the way you drum. It's almost like you have a pretty straight back, I think, and you're at home in your seat, like your butt. You're like the knees and the and your hips are like a good angle. It looks like you're sitting at the bar. It's like you're on a bar stool and you're just moving your hands. You have really good, like, you keep your upper arms pretty tight and motionless, but it really is all in the wrists and hands for you. Do you agree?
Yeah, and I think that exactly what you're saying is what makes me look at myself on playback as awkward. I feel like my upper arms aren't doing what other drummers' upper arms do. Like, I feel like you're more of a full arm expressive, and granted, yeah, it's all in the wrist and whatnot, but I mean, it's the whole package, right? It's your whole, arm, fingers, wrist, that the whole thing is as a system moving together. And I feel like it's more it's more common to see a drummer with a little bit more arm movement than I display when I'm playing. So to me, that's what looks awkward, but to you, that might look different.
Yeah, that's really funny because it seems like everybody has to do a little bit of a different thing with their body to achieve like a similar sound. So if you take if you take 9 or 10, why did I choose 9? If you take 10 drummers and you're like, play this, play Paradise City, Steven Adler, Guns N' Roses.
Yeah,
they're gonna all look, maybe the best ones. They'll get his feel, but they're all gonna look different doing it. So how funny is it that everybody's body has to do a different thing to achieve the same sound or technique. So sometimes I get in a trap of like when I want to learn something and I can see the person doing it on a video or something, I'll be like, well, I have to look like that and like I guess my arms have to look like that when I'm playing this. And then I'll be playing like just shitting on it for 20 minutes. And then I realize, oh, I just have to play it the way my body would play it. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I know what you mean, and I think that's true. But I can give you an example, a very like apt example of the opposite for me. When I started playing the Sublime stuff, I would always on the 2 and 4, I would play the hi-hat and the snare together like a shuffle beat. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And if you look at the way Bud Gaw plays, he always lifts up for the snare hit. On his right hand, right? So it's always, he doesn't play the 2 and the 4 on the hi-hat, he plays just the snare drum. When I started to emulate that sticking, I felt like I could play his grooves better.
Yeah.
And it's a different, like your body moves differently when you're grooving it like that. Okay, so there's also songs on 40 Ounces to Freedom that Marshall Goodman is the drummer on that are similar in style, like just a shuffle beat.
What's My Number? Is that on there?
The perfect example, right? Ball and chain, 54-46, a shuffle groove. So he's not lifting up, and sometimes I'll lift up with the right hand live to play it the more Bud way, and sometimes I won't, and I can make it get closer to like the Marshall studio version. But that's just an example of emulating a drummer's kind of body movements or sticking patterns. You know, the notes are all there; they're all the same notes, but that helped me realize that sometimes you got to just you almost have to like copy every little thing, and it helped me get closer. And that's just one example, but mostly, like, I know what you're saying, like everyone has their comfort zone as any instrument, and sometimes you have to just play it like you want to play it, and that's the best way to do it.
Right. That's a really good point. So I guess there must be elements of both that make it all work out. But you're right. Like,
I guess it depends on what you're trying to achieve, you know?
You know, it's funny you mentioned that, because when I've been doing the reggae stuff, well, I noticed that when I'm this is gonna sound funny, but when I'm really feeling it and really digging it, I do this thing with my mouth but like, if you watch the video, like you suck in your lips, basically. You make your lips disappear, and you kind of tuck your neck. And I realized, like, oh man, that's what he does when he's playing these. So yeah, there's body language for sure. And you know, is that what, you know? Because you guys, Badfish, in a really cosmic and hilarious twist of fate, Bud's band, Del Mar, opened for you guys several times. And I remember he said something about, like, he gave you like a wink, and he was like, you've done your holy homework. Was that relate to like the hi-hat technique?
You mean his just signing on to do those shows in a sense?
Yeah, but he said something to you, wasn't it? Holy homework.
I think he may have, because that's sort of that's from Robin the Hood. I feel like that's something that was said by Raleigh, the kind of wacky guy that has his rants in between songs. I think he did say that. Yeah, you're right. He did say that, and maybe that's something to do with that. I think I had definitely started emulating his style before we played those shows with him. But
yeah, you pick up the right hand hi-hat, and then really swing the left hand.
If you're really gonna do it the right way, your 2 and 4 before they come down need to be basically up in the air, stick arched back over your, in back of your left shoulder.
Yeah.
And then come down with the thunder. I mean, I don't always do that, but sometimes I will for just like the effect of it, like as a nod, like, yeah, like,
Yeah.
this is what Bud does, like not, almost as a really explicit homage to his drumming versus me just doing it, trying to make it sound like him, but to make it look like him for like a couple measures is kind of fun.
Yeah. Scott, thanks for having me.
Dude, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much. I could go on for hours, so I think we're just gonna have to circle back and do this again. Because why not? I don't know. I have fun talking to you, and I think that we're talking about some fun stuff that people will really enjoy listening to. So thank you so much for coming on.
Anytime. Thank you for having me. I'll be on anytime. You have a good night.
All right, you too. Take care, brother.
See you, buddy.